All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the American Occupational Therapy Association's latest practice chat, sponsored by AOTA's Home and Community Health Special Interest section. For those participating for the first time, we appreciate you joining us this evening. For previous attendees, we are pleased to welcome you back. My name is Michael Lopez, Practice Engagement Co-Coordinator of AOTA's Home and Community Health Special Interest section, and I extend my gratitude for your attendance. This presentation will review low vision, blindness, and common vision conditions and describe the role of low vision rehabilitation in outpatient OT. We will explore ways in which community-based OTs can implement low vision rehabilitation concepts to improve safety and independence for clients with low vision. Prior to beginning tonight's discussion, I would like to review several housekeeping matters to ensure a seamless experience for all participants. If you are joining by phone and have not already done so, please mute your device. Similarly, if you are participating via computer, kindly mute your microphone. Only the designated speaker should have their device unmuted at any given time. It is now my privilege to introduce our guests from the KCI Institute associated with the Oregon Health Sciences University Evelyn L. Jones Low Vision Rehabilitation Center, Kathryn Marxen-Simonson. Kathryn graduated from the University of Puget Sound with her Master of Science in Occupational Therapy in 2014. She started out as a school-based OT, but found her passion for low vision rehabilitation and pursued advanced training and received her graduate certificate in low vision rehabilitation from Western Michigan University in 2018, and she completed her Certified Low Vision Therapist certification from the Academy for Certification of Vision Rehabilitation and Education Professionals. She currently sits on the Certified Low Vision Therapist Subject Matter Expert Committee for the Academy for Certification of Vision Rehabilitation and Education Professionals. As an OT and certified low vision therapist, Kathryn works at the Oregon Health and Sciences University KCI Institute in Portland, Oregon. She specializes in serving individuals with vision loss and blindness. She works with patients to evaluate the functional impacts of their vision loss and teaches them to optimize their remaining vision through adaptations, modifications, and other tips and tricks for living more independently despite their vision loss. Kathryn is passionate about helping those with visual impairments and brings a unique perspective to her work as she has low vision herself. In her spare time, Kathryn enjoys riding her horse and taking walks with her guide dog, Beret. Kathryn, thank you so much again for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael. I'm excited to be here and get to share with you about low vision rehabilitation and occupational therapy's role. Just to start out, I have no disclosures and I have no financial interest in any of the products that will be discussed in this presentation. And just to review those objectives, we'll identify the role of low vision occupational therapy and outpatient rehabilitation and identify strategies that can be used in the home and community to assist clients with low vision and learn about some resources available. So a little bit more about me. I am an occupational therapist and a certified low vision therapist, and I work at the OHSU KCI Institute in Portland, Oregon. I am legally blind due to retinopathy of prematurity, and this really allows me to have a unique impact on the clients that I serve and bring a unique perspective to my work. I really feel like it helps me build rapport and clients really open up and be able to share, which is can be pretty profound at times. And that's a picture of me in the top right corner getting a kiss from my yellow lab guide dog, Beret. I thought I would start out with just defining what low vision is. So it's vision loss that cannot be corrected by means of eyeglasses, surgery, or medication. Low vision is typically defined as a visual acuity between 20/70 and 2100. Legally blind is a visual acuity of 2200 or worse in the visual or a visual field of less than 20 degrees. Um, Near blind falls in that range of 21,250 to 22,500. And then blind is considered no light perception. Along with visual acuity, though, there are other visual factors that can impact a person's ability to function and navigate their world. This may be a restriction in the visual field or your peripheral vision, contrast sensitivity, how well items stand out from their background, glare sensitivity, central scotomas or blind spots can have a significant impact, particularly on near reading and close work. Eye tracking and ocular motility challenges, as well as visual perception. Just to name a few common vision conditions, age-related macular degeneration. This condition causes central blind spots, impacting most significantly reading. Diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, which is a constriction in the visual field, retinitis pigmentosa, and hereditary optic atrophy are both genetic conditions that lead to vision loss. Hereditary optic atrophies are conditions that affect the optic nerve and cause progressive vision loss, as well as retinitis pigmentosa leads to tunnel vision and decreased peripheral vision down to very minimal or no vision, depending on the subtype that the client has. And then, of course, there can be vision related conditions and loss of visual field from acquired brain injury. So we're not going to go into too much detail about all of these conditions, but I did want to show some photos here that kind of help get a little bit of a sense of what these conditions may be like. So in the top left photo, there's a photo of two boys, each holding a ball. And that represents kind of what that would look like with normal vision. The middle photo on the top row demonstrates glaucoma, where it's a decrease in that peripheral vision, making it only able to see just the boys' faces. Diabetic retinopathy can cause kind of splotchy blind spots. It may not appear as black for the client, but has some areas where there's missing vision. And that's the picture on the top right. Moving down to the bottom row, we've got age-related macular degeneration. So like I said, that causes that central blind spot in where there is missing vision in the middle. So in the photograph of the two boys holding their balls, you cannot see their faces, but you can see their hands holding the ball. And then finally, the photo on the bottom right shows retinitis pigmentosa, where it's that loss of a visual field and severe constriction, where you can only see just the eyes of the two boys in the photo. So vision loss affects every single activity that a person participates in throughout their day. So I'll talk a little bit about the occupational therapist role in vision rehabilitation. So we're guided by the same practice framework, models, and evaluation and intervention planning as a general OT. I work very closely with other professionals, whether these are optometrists, ophthalmologists, neuro-ophthalmologists, orientation and mobility specialists, to help, and social workers to help serve the clients to the best of their ability. Patients are often seen by the low vision optometrist first, who optimizes their vision through glasses, and they may introduce magnifiers and some assistive technology. And then the patient is referred to the low vision OT for further training and assessment. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on my practice. So I work with a wide variety of patients, ages 2 to 100 plus. Um, they have a wide range of conditions. I think I've, seen patients with every condition that I listed in that last slide, um, and plenty more. Um, and I work full time in the vision rehabilitation department. And patients are referred to me from, we've got two low vision optometrists that work with us. And then I also get referrals from other internal providers, ophthalmologists and optometrists at KCI Institute, as well as external providers as well. So the low vision evaluation encompasses the occupational profile, their vision status. So look at visual acuity, what's their contrast sensitivity? Do they have a visual field loss? Are they bothered by glare? Because these are all areas and things that can be addressed through vision rehabilitation, as well as these are the kind of functional impacts that are going to have an effect on their daily activities. I look at and assess the impact that their vision has on their activities of daily living and IADLs, reading, and looking and talking with them about goal setting and what they are really wanting to get out of their time, out of the time, and to be more independent with. So my interventions have to do with reading is often a very, very big focus, because we have to be able to read to navigate our environment, whether that's reading signs out in the community or reading a food package to know the cooking instructions, reading a recipe, being able to communicate with friends and family through email, text messages, accessing voicemail, navigating a cell phone. So all of those areas, reading is just such a big part of our lives. So that's often a common area addressed. Same with writing and teaching adaptive strategies for writing, um, meal preparation and learning about some of the adaptive tools that are available, the use of assistive technologies, whether that's magnifiers or built-in features on their smart devices, and discussing adjustment to vision loss and the impact on family dynamics. So vision is, we often think about vision impacting the person who's experiencing it, but really it impacts everybody around them as well, because it will change their habits, their roles, their routines, their rituals, and often, family and partners have to change their habits and routines and roles to be able to help accommodate um, the family member with vision loss. So I wanted to talk about some low vision interventions for the home and community. And we're going to touch on some basic principles that can be applied to a wide variety of contexts. And these are lighting, contrast, glare, and patterns. So specifically talking about lighting, we've got kind of your general ambient light, which could be room light, LED lights. You want to, when you are lighting a space from above, you want to make sure that you avoid shadows. So there's not like an area of light and then an area of dark. You want it to be just well uniformly lit. Natural light is such a great source of um light. You want from windows. Um you For positioning for natural light, I think it's best to have your back facing the window, and not your front facing the window so that the light is shining on you from behind and it can illuminate the things in front of you. Um, good lighting is just essential to enhance visual functioning. So the use of task lighting, where the light is positioned kind of directly at the source that you are looking at. So really looking at the proper positioning is super important. So there's a photo on this page of a gooseneck lamp, a gooseneck table lamp, and having a gooseneck is optimal because you can get it in the proper position. You want to have the light positioned between the eyes and the paper or the task that the person is working at, the near task. So it could be, kind of over their shoulder, positioned between the eyes and the task. And the gooseneck allows for that proper positioning. You want the light to be positioned on the side of the better seeing eye. And this allows for the light to be kind of reflected off the surface and then into the not as good seeing eye. Um, and you want to make sure that the light doesn't reflect back into their eyes, so having a shade on it is important. So looking at contrast, contrast refers to how well an object stands out from its background. In the top right corner, there is an example of high contrast, which is black bold text on a white background. And then below that, there is gray text on a black background demonstrating poor contrast. So the best contrast is that 100% black letters on a white background or white letters on a black background. There are several different ways to increase contrast, and we'll talk about some more of these specifics later on. But you can change the object or the background color. Adding that task lighting really increases contrast. Or use of tinted lenses can sometimes increase the contrast. So one of my favorite examples of increasing contrast is using a black cutting board to cut a white onion. Can you imagine trying to do that cut a white onion on a white cutting board? That's going to be a lot harder to see. Glare is light sources or reflections of light that shine directly into the eyes. These could be overhead lights, it could be from windows, sunlight. So a couple strategies, and we'll talk about this more too, but on how to reduce glare. So wearing a hat or a visor. Avoiding overhead lights when using a magnifier, particularly an optical magnifier or even electronic one, because sometimes there can be reflections of light of the lights on the top of the magnifier, which make it hard to see through. Using a typoscope. So there's a picture of a typoscope in the top right corner where there's a little black square with a little box cut out of it, and it just helps kind of block out all the extra stuff around what they're trying to read and gives a little bit more focus to the sentence at task at hand. Using tinted lenses are also a very common source for glare reduction. So by having not just a regular pair of sunglasses, but maybe an alternate color tint like yellow or amber, or even like a light gray can help reduce the glare and make it more comfortable, which would help increase contrast and make things easier to see as well. Covering shiny surfaces with a tablecloth or a placemat is also another strategy for reducing glare and making sure that floor cleaners and things like that are not a glossy finish, but more of like a matte finish is helpful. And finally, patterns. So patterns increase the visual clutter. There's a photograph on this page demonstrating a table with a blue checkered tablecloth with yellow lemons on it. And then on the table is a bowl of yellow fruit. And this shows that, trying to find something on that tablecloth is going to be a lot harder to see because of the visual clutter from the background. So this could be considered with, tablecloths, dishes, area rugs. So removing the patterns and making changes to solid colors will make it easier to see. So now we're going to talk about some specific home applications for these principles because they can be applied to many tasks around the home. And before we jump into some specifics, I just wanted to talk about some general suggestions. And these are similar to our, kind of fall prevention strategies that we often teach and work with. But removing low tables or sharp edges for safety, clearing pathways and removing general clutter, taping down or removing area rugs, installing railings at all stairs, and consider using a high contrast color so that it stands out against the wall, and Velcroing lamps to the table to prevent them from being knocked over. So one of kind of my favorite things to talk about is marking stairs. So if you mark the stair with a high contrast tape, it's going to make it a lot easier to see. So on the left-hand side of this slide, there is a double photograph. It shows a set of concrete stairs from the bottom and from the top. From the bottom, it's difficult to see that there's actual stairs there. You can see a little bit of a shadow from the rise of the step, but for somebody with decreased depth perception, it could be very difficult to tell that that's actual steps versus a ramp. And then if you look at the picture just to the right of that, it's looking at those same set of stairs from the top, and there is absolutely no indication that those are stairs. For me personally, looking at that, being at the top of those stairs and looking at that, because I don't have any depth perception, I have no clue. It looks like a ramp. It looks like I could just like slide down it. And this is something that we see often in the community. This is this is at a pretty popular tourist attraction here in the Portland area that gets a lot of foot traffic every year. So, being able to advocate in community settings to mark stairs so that they are more accessible to those with visual impairments is definitely something that I try to do out in the community and encourage others to do as well. So you can see a picture on the right shows a set of stairs where the top of the step is marked as well as kind of the top edge of the riser. So each step is kind of encased in some high contrast marking, whether that's tape or paint, to really outline and make it a lot easier to see where those steps are. And marking the edges of things can be applied in other contexts as well, such as the bathtub, the top of the bathtub edge, marking that with a high contrast piece of tape makes it a little bit easier to see for stepping in and out of the tub. Marking doorways sometimes can be helpful in high contrast tape so that it's very obvious where the doorway is, or painting the door frames a different color can be helpful as well. Talking about a few more examples of contrast, you know, painting the back of cabinets or shelving a contrasting color, or using like a contrasting shelf liner to what's on the shelf, um, including high contrast labels. So that's something that I've gone and around my home and property. And when I label something, I make sure that it's a very high contrast label. My preference seems to be black Sharpie on a piece of bright yellow tape. So that makes it easier to see, um, and makes the label itself stand out as well as the writing. The high contrast cutting board example that I gave earlier. So, a black cutting board or a white cutting board, depending on what food you're cutting. Putting a high contrast throw blanket over the back of the couch can make for a good visual target. And kind of your a dark felt pen on white paper for writing and making notes. I just wanted to briefly touch on reading just because that is such a huge challenge for individuals with vision loss. Um, Really kind of the first line of defense or the first line of approach is to make sure that they have appropriate lighting, task lighting with the proper positioning, like I discussed earlier, that allows allows them to be able to increase that contrast and see what they're working on a little bit more clearly. This could be in the form of a desk lamp. Maybe it's a floor lamp, depending on where they're doing their reading. Or if they're out, maybe needing to do something in a shop or another building or another space. A hands-free option would be a headlamp, can be very, very helpful. The use of magnification. So there's lots of options for magnification from kind of your standard handheld magnifiers up to an electronic magnifier, which is a device that that has a camera that you can set right on the paper, and it projects the image on the screen of the device, and then you're able to increase or decrease your level of magnification as well as change the color contrast. So maybe a client has a preference for white text on a black background or yellow text on a black background. They're able to convert that. What's really exciting is with the kind of advances in technology and everyday technology that everybody has, they have a built-in magnifier in their pocket if they have a smartphone. So whether that is iPhone or Android, on the iPhones, there is a built-in magnifier that you can do lots of cool things with, including changing the color of the contrast. Um, and then for Android, some models have built-in magnifiers, and others you have to download a specific application to allow for that, but there's quite a few options out there. And then, up to even more advanced technology of like wearable electronic magnification options and things like that. And then if magnification is not meeting the client's needs for reading, then there's quite a few options for text to speech. A lot of these land as applications on a smartphone, but there are also standalone devices that can scan a page and be able to read it out loud. So there's lots of options to explore when it comes to adaptations for reading. Labeling is another huge area that can be really helpful. And there's lots of different types and ways of labeling. So you could do large print labels. So that might be as simple as putting a big S on your shampoo bottle with a Sharpie and a big C on your conditioner bottle. Or it could be something a little bit fancier where you write the color or the name of the clothing on a big index card and you attach that to the hanger or safety pin it to the piece of clothing. So there's lots of options for large print labels. The next option are tactile labels. So you'll see there's 4 pictures on the screen. The picture in the bottom right shows a microwave with bump dots on them. So those are little tactile markers that are raised that have a sticky back that you can place on the button on the microwave or the stove or the oven or the AC unit. And those are used to give a tactile indicator of where that button is. And so then you can just press it without having to visually see what the buttons are. There definitely is a bit of a memorization component to that, but it can be super, super helpful. Audio labels. So there are several different types of devices that can create audio labels for pretty much whatever you want to label. Whether that be a medication, a spice bottle, or a calendar notification. In a minute here, I'll demonstrate a little video of one of those devices called the Pen Friend. But first, I want to kind of go back and talk a little bit more about like setting dials and buttons. So some strategies for that would be using clock positions can be helpful for knowing at like what temperature, is high at 11 o'clock or low at 1 o'clock. Using auditory cues. So sometimes appliances have an auditory cue for when you're pressing a button. So you can use that to alert you to when you're making a change. Like I mentioned, those tactile markers can be super helpful. You can even get large print labels for buttons on appliances. Um, and then cognitive strategies as well. So often the oven temperature comes on at 350 degrees and it goes up by 5 or 10 degree increments, depending on the oven. And so you just press the button the number of times that you need to go up to get to the desired temperature. And then finally, you can make Braille labels for individuals who do read Braille. That's not as common with the older adult population just because those who have lost vision later in life often aren't introduced and learn Braille. But definitely it is still an option. And I often recommend it for just basic navigation such as elevator buttons or reading numbers for room numbers and things like that. So I have a video here that I'm going to play, and hopefully the audio comes through sufficient, demonstrating that pen friend. This is actually my spice rack at home, and showing how that works. I thought it would be fun to share one of my low vision adaptations for all of my spices. So I've gone through and put them in the same size containers with larger high contrast labels. So all the containers match and the labels match. And then I have also gone and added pen friend labels. So this is the pen friend. It is an audio recording device that you can make audio recordings that are attached to the sticker labels. And then when the pen is touched to the label, it plays back the message that was recorded. So I can then use that to know what my spices are. And then we have our overflow down here. So it makes it so much easier for me to be able to find and keep our spices organized. The other thing I didn't mention in that video too is that all of the spices are in alphabetical order, which allows for me to be able to kind of have a sense of where they are, what row they're in, and it makes it easier for finding them. Oops. And then one of the next kind of strategies to think about is organization. So organization is key for individuals with vision loss and blindness because all items have a place and they go back in the same place. And this allows individuals with vision loss to be able to kind of learn where things are and be able to know where they are and go back to them right away. So some examples is organizing. Sorry about that. My cat's trying to climb in a box. Is organizing items by group, so color, category, maybe placement or location. Using clothing features like style, texture, types of fasteners to help identify them, grouping similar food items together by size or meal. So that might be having all of your vegetables in one part of the cabinet with a big, large, high contrast label. Having, your fruit, your cans of fruit in another spot. And um, using, for another example for clothing management is hanging outfits together and placing the accessories in a plastic bag and then hang that on the neck of the hanger so they just have to go grab a full outfit. Um, one strategy for being able to kind of to pair and match socks is to get rust-free safety pins and safety pin the socks together and before throwing them in the wash. And so then when they come out, they're already matched and you don't have to go through the process of matching socks. One of the big things is really the individual with the vision loss needs to develop their strategy and their organizational system and then train their family members and individuals or maybe caregivers to really respect that organizational system that they've developed um, and to help follow it and really explaining to them why it helps is really important. The so that there's just that open communication around the needs and ways that other people can support them. I thought I would just touch briefly on a couple additional strategies for clients with no vision. Um, Orienting them to the space and items is important. Giving specific verbal directions instead of saying just over there, say to your left, right, top, bottom, to give them specific directions. Use of tactile and auditory cues can be very helpful. And again, that consistent organization is going to really help them be able to locate and find their items. So I thought I would briefly just touch on a few additional resources that can be helpful. Hadleyhelps.org is a great website that has created little workshop videos and on tips and tricks for living with vision loss. They have categories on daily living, recreation. They do free Braille instruction. Technology and work-related adaptations. Their materials free to access. You just have to create a login with an email and a password, but then you're able to access it. They also have great podcasts with different interviews for different topics related to vision loss. So Hadley is a fantastic resource and organization and website for passing along to clients to learn more about tips and tricks. Vision Aware has a lot of great information on eye conditions and different articles on living with vision loss. And then in terms of finding adaptive equipment, there's kind of three main companies, and a fourth I'll add in there. Maxi Aids, Independent Living Aids, and LS&S are great resources for purchasing adaptive equipment. Um, and then the Blind Kitchen is a local Portland-based company, but they're accessible online. And it's super cool because it's owned by a blind chef. So she went to culinary school and then she has created and opened this business where she provides some great uh, tips and tricks and little videos through her social media platforms and on the website through her blog on cooking with vision loss, as well as she's curated all sorts of different kitchen related tools that can be helpful for cooking with vision loss. So another great resource. So that concludes kind of the formal part of my presentation, but I definitely want to open this up to questions, and I'm happy to answer anything that has come up for you.
Kathryn, we don't have any questions in the chat. I will definitely continue monitoring it just in case anything comes in. But I want to ask you, are there funding resources or programs OT should know about to help clients obtain some of these assistive technologies or adaptive equipment?
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of great resources for funding, but there are a few. Um, the Lions Club can sometimes be one resource. You might be able to look for like local organizations, like here in Portland, or in Oregon, I should say, we have something called the Blanche Fisher Foundation that can provide or can purchase adaptive equipment for clients who meet the financial requirements and are complete the application process. There is, like our department has a very small fund that can help with some of the like adaptive equipment, but unfortunately, financial barriers are a significant part, particularly for this population. So I would really love to see more funding options or donation programs get started, those kinds of things, because um, yeah, there needs to be more opportunity to be able to get these things.
Some questions coming in. Are there resources specific for caregivers?
Um, that Vision Aware website has some great articles for caregivers and information about living with vision loss. I think Hadley's a great website for specific, like for caregivers, just to help learn about some strategies that can be helpful. I think it would be a great, opportunity for a client and a caregiver to watch together and talk about, what strategies are being presented and then, how that could be implemented for their specific situation.
Another question that came in, what is the name of the raised or tactile dots that was mentioned earlier?
I think they're called several different names, but they're generally called bump dots. I think one company calls them can do bumps. But if you go to any of those websites and type in, bump dots, or even Amazon sells, kind of variety packs of bump dots. Um, so that's
Another question here, at what point would you recommend a client be referred to a low vision clinic if they have not been prior?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, Kind of the approach that we take in our clinic is that anybody who is experiencing functional challenges because of their vision can be referred to vision rehabilitation. So I don't think that there is necessarily a true um, cutoff point. I think if it gets to that low vision line, acuity wise, that 20/70, that's definitely a great place to start. But also, I have clients who may have good acuity, but their contrast sensitivity is severely or profoundly impacted. And that's going to have a pretty big functional impact as well, or maybe glare sensitivity. Or loss of the peripheral vision. So there's those other factors that can impact functioning.
The next question, what does your evaluation of a patient look like when a patient comes to your clinic?
So I work in a clinic setting. So I will bring the client back. I'll introduce what occupational therapy is because a lot of clients don't even know what OT is. And I talk about how I specialize in vision rehabilitation. And then I really try to get a sense of what are their big concerns related to their vision. I talk about what's their living situation like, what supports do they have, really just getting that opportunity to get to know them and what challenges they're having and what supports do they already have in place, what adaptive equipment, what technology do they have. Um, and then I go through an an ADL checklist where the client actually rates how difficult those daily tasks are kind of related to their vision, just to get a sense of how they feel like they're functioning versus and what areas are challenges versus where do they feel like they're still independent. And then, getting a good sense of any additional medical conditions that might be impacting their function. So they may have low vision, but they might also have, Parkinson's or they might also have, diabetes or other conditions that is going to impact, their abilities to function. And then just really talking about goals and what they want to get out of the time and kind of where do we want to prioritize our time together. And then usually I try to get to some sort of treatment or give them some tips or tricks. And then I'll see them back for a series of, anywhere from a couple visits to more, depending on, how long it takes them to kind of master their goals. And a little bit is unfortunately dependent on my schedule because I book out quite far because I'm the only, as of the last time I looked, I'm the only certified low vision therapist in the state of Oregon. So I'm booking into August at this point. So sometimes it can take a little bit to get clients in on my schedule, which is not my preferred way of doing things, but it's just how it is.
And a more specific case example here, the question poses, I have a patient having difficulty using his stove controls, specifically the digital temperature and time. His electric magnifier does not interpret the digital output. Do you have any equipment suggestions?
That's a good question. So I think this kind of depends, I think, on if it's a true touch screen or if it still has the buttons. Um, the but either way, incorporating bump dots are super helpful for finding the buttons. When it comes to reading the time, that's kind of that cognitive strategy that I talked about earlier, where the oven usually comes on at 350 and goes up by 5 or 10 degree increments. And so, being able to easily locate that temperature up and down button and pressing that the number of times that they need to get to the temperature that they need. The other option could look at using an optical magnifier if there is one that um, meets their visual needs and gives them enough magnification. If they have a cell phone or an iPad, using the built-in magnifier on that should be sufficient to interpret the digital time.
Another question here. What about strategies for sorting laundry and putting outfits together afterwards?
Yeah, so this is where using tactile cues, or I mean tactile kind of cues or strategies can be really helpful in identifying the clothing. Maybe it's a series of buttons, or what does the waistband of the pants feel like, or is there a specific applique on the shirt? Um, so there's kind of that for determining your clothing. There are devices that can do color identification. So specific color identifier devices that just tell you what the color of the item is. I have a lot of clients who are starting to use the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. Those have become kind of the big talk and kind of hot item in the blindness community right now because they are a fairly financially accessible piece of everyday technology that can be helpful for people with vision loss, using the AI component to ask it to describe what's in front of them, or what color is this clothing, and so that'll give a little bit more of a detailed description of the clothing. There are other apps like Be My Eyes that connects individuals with a sighted volunteer through a video call on the phone, where that person could help the individual identify the clothing or sort items, or match outfits. So that is another way.
I just want to read a comment from someone that says, in Louisiana and Mississippi, the Departments of Independent Living Services and Vocational Rehab and Lighthouse of Louisiana are good resources. In Louisiana, there are lending technology agencies in Baton Rouge and Shreveport, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, that may have some adaptive equipment available for lending or at a lower cost. The individual who asked about the strategies for sorting laundry also asked, what about managing medications?
Yeah, managing medications is certainly a big one from a safety standpoint. The pen friend device that I demonstrated in that little video is great for labeling medications and over the counter like supplements and things. There is an awesome program called Script Talk, and it's a free program. The client and their pharmacy have to be a part of the program, but once they are, the pharmacy will put special RFID tag labels on the bottom of the bottle, and then the client can either get a device or have an app on their phone where they can read that label, and it's provided all free of charge, and it has all of the information about that excuse me, prescription medication. So it'll say the patient, the medication, the dosage, the prescription, the prescription number, the telephone for renewing, you're refilling the prescription, and it even goes through all of the side effects. So Script Talk is a great program for the prescription medications. There is also the Accessible Pharmacy, which is a mail order pharmacy that can do like prepackaged like bubble packs or like prepackaged medications. They also have Script Talk, and they can do large print labels as well.
Another question here in the chat. How does the intervention differ for children with cortical or cerebral visual impairment?
Yeah, CVI is definitely a little bit of a different animal, just because it's more of a brain processing and visual processing. There are some kind of key components or strategies that can be helpful in terms of contrast is still a huge one. Kids with CVI often have preferences of colors. Maybe it's yellow or red or blue. Um, and then movement and light are also pretty stimulating for individuals with vision. Really decreasing the visual clutter in the environment. So having, maybe like a black trifold board, and really simplifying things. Um, can be helpful. Children with CVI are often also working with teachers of the visually impaired in the school system, to kind of help, and they kind of are the experts on CVI. But yeah, it's definitely an area to be addressed, and I do get kids with CVI as well.
And the final two questions here, I want to thank everyone in the chat for answering some of these. Can you share an example of a goal that you would write?
Yeah, so I tend to keep my goals fairly broad to give us um room to explore. So one goal might be that a client uses identified magnification and or text to speech, to be able to complete their desired reading. Um, or using efficient and effective scanning strategies to compensate for their decreased visual field for safety with mobility or increasing their independence with finding things in their environment. So those are just a couple of examples. Or using a specific piece of technology, whether it's an iPhone, and learning those built-in accessibility features.
Um, Kathryn, hopefully you have time maybe for a few more. We're getting some questions here in the chat. Do you mind if I pose a few more?
Sure.
It says, do you use any standardized assessments during your initial evaluation in addition to the functional or ADL assessments?
I use the Mars contrast sensitivity test very regularly. Um, I will I will occasionally give the SK read, which is a reading test looking at the impact of central scotomas on reading. Um, those are kind of the main ones that I use. I have a tendency to approach this very much from a functional standpoint, but looking at all those components of vision, it's nice because I'm able to get a, a lot of the kind of vision pieces from the optometrist or their referring provider too. So that's helpful.
And Kathryn, any thoughts on the use of artificial intelligence?
Oh, personally or professionally? No, just kidding. I really think there are some great uses of artificial intelligence for the blindness community, specifically through like the meta glasses for gathering information. There's applications like I mentioned, like Be My Eyes, that also has an AI component. It's one that I've been using more recently, where I can pair it with Siri on my iPhone, and I can say, hey Siri, um, ask Be My Eyes, and it will open Be My Eyes, and it'll prompt me, what question do you want to ask? And I can just point it at a food package, and I can say, what are the cooking instructions? And instead of reading the entire backside of that entire panel of that food package, it will pull out and only give me the cooking instructions, or I can ask what the ingredients are, things like that. So that's super awesome. There's another great application that I don't think I mentioned, called Seeing AI, which has a text to speech component where you can have it will read um items to you, or it'll take a picture and then it'll put the text on the phone and then read it out loud. So those optical character recognition, or OCR, types of tools are super helpful. So I think AI certainly has some big benefits in gathering information. But I think it's also important to note that with the caveat that, like, it is, you're talking to a computer and it may or may not give you accurate information. And so a great example of this is I have a client who has the Meta glasses. He uses them regularly, and he took them to a food cart pod and he asked it to read the menu at the food cart, and it was a burger place, and it was reading all the burgers, and then it said that there was a hot dog, and he was like, I love hot dogs, I'm gonna go get a hot dog. And he goes up and he goes to order the hot dog, and there's no hot dog on the menu. So the AI did make that up. So I think it's just important to note that it may not always be accurate. And so if there's ways to kind of fact check yourself, or use other tools, that's helpful too.
Besides having and developing really more OTs in the specialty area of low vision, I would love to see OTs at the table where some of these technologies are being created and refined, simply because we have so much expertise and knowledge to offer these other sectors and really our clients at large. So I encourage everyone on this call to think about becoming certified in low vision, or working with these other companies and teams developing these products to better serve our clients. The last question of the evening, I promise. Okay. Another case specific example here. I recently had a patient who was having difficulty aiming when he is standing to use the toilet. He tried the aiming lights for children, but found it unhelpful. We suggested increasing contrast on the toilet seat with duct tape, but were unable to come up with other ideas. Do you have any strategies that you have used or suggestions for this type of barrier?
I will be honest, I have not been posed with that question from a client yet. I'm sure it'll come one day. Um, my first thought is increasing the contrast, like you already suggested with duct tape, making that um toilet seat easier to see, and working with a client to determine like what color would be most beneficial for them. Um, I could imagine that the lights may or may not be helpful if there was enough room light and stand out well enough. But certainly turning off the lights is not an option either. So, yeah, that's kind of a tricky one. Yeah, I think contrast is certainly an aspect of that. So,
And someone mentioned toilet bowl lights. I appreciate everyone in the chat kind of helping each other problem
yeah.
solve through some of these questions. That's really the purpose of these practice chats. So thank you so much. Out of respect for everyone's time, I will wrap up our practice chat this evening. I want to say first and foremost, thank you to Kathryn for your informative and engaging presentation. You are such an asset to the occupational therapy community and really the profession at large. So we appreciate the review of low vision and common visual conditions, as well as your clear explanation about the role of low vision rehab and outpatient OT, the practical strategies you shared for integrating low vision rehab concepts into community-based practice to enhance safety and independence were especially valuable. I know many of us appreciated everything that you had offered this evening. Thank you for your time and expertise you shared with us. I also want to extend my sincere thanks to everyone for your participation. I invite you to stay involved with AOTA's Home and Community Health Special Interest section by visiting us on CommunOT or our new microsite at hchsis.aota.org, where you can find more information and exclusive resources, publications, and updates on upcoming events. Hope to see you next time. Thank you again, Kathryn, and I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you.